on this Wednesday night, just 15 days away from the 2026 NFL Draft. Nick, that being said, 2 weeks and 1 day from right now, the NFL Draft will be underway in Pittsburgh. In a couple of hours after it is open, the Steelers will be making a selection at pick 21. You can change your pick, of course, but who right now do you think that name will be that gets called 21st overall?
It's the murkiest it's been since I can remember. And so I'm throwing out a name that I think makes a lot of sense for them, but I'm still not even totally sure of this. So a lot of this is conjecture because I've heard a lot of different things. I've analyzed a lot of different things. My pick right now is Omar Cooper Jr. That's kind of where I'm at wide receiver. I think there's a few reasons I go with Omar Cooper Jr. One, there's a lot of built-in connections on the staff, right? Adam Henry recruited him to Indiana. Frank Cignetti Jr. is Kurt Cignetti's brother, so obviously you have a lot of ins there. You just have a lot of ways to kind of vet the player. I think that's an easy one to look at. He also just fits what Mike McCarthy likes. He fits what they need. He's a yak producer, separator, can play inside or outside. He fits a lot of what they do. Two, it really comes down to I just don't think Venga Ioane makes it to 21. I just think he's too good of a prospect. If he's there at 21, different story. I just don't see it happening. And three, I also think that there's going to be maybe more wide receivers off the board than people think. And I think there might be 4 wide receivers off the board by the time the Steelers come on the board at 21. I don't think that's crazy. And I just don't necessarily buy the offensive tackle talk yet. I don't. I think that there could be an off the wall secondary pick here that maybe pops in. But to me, I think wide receiver makes a lot of sense. And Omar Cooper Jr. checks a lot of the boxes for the Steelers.
It does feel like he's gaining momentum there, that he could be that guy. And maybe he's not the most explosive wide receiver. You know, maybe he's not a Mekhi Lemon who could be an explosive slot guy, or Jordan Tyson, who I think is one of my favorites, like behind Carnell Tate. We know Tate's going to be gone early. Tyson is a dude that could either go in the top 10 or he could slide because of injury concerns. Cooper feels like the safe bet out of that crew. So I certainly wouldn't be upset because I also think he's a hell of a player.
Solid. Does everything well, blocks his tail off, played outside in 2024. I think there's some deep threat ability there to be unlocked that isn't there. I mean, the comp that's been thrown around a lot for Omar Cooper is Deebo Samuel. And the reason is because he's so good after the catch. He's got that running back-like build. He's so physical. That's why that mold has kind of been thrown out. I don't love that comp. I think that there's probably a better one out there. I don't really have one off the top of my head, but I think that there's a better one. He's very much a player that, the modern OC would like. Someone like a Shanahan, a McVay, an O'Connell, a Cohen. They would like this guy. And I think he's an old school player too because of how tough he is. He catches everything thrown his way. Tyson's the one, Donnie. I don't know where he's going to go. I mean, he could be on the board of 21 and the Steelers could pass on him and I wouldn't be stunned. You know what I mean? Like, the injury history is just daunting. It's not a question of, is this guy going to necessarily be, here having the long-term ramifications. There's not an injury that has long-term ramifications for him. It's just he's been hurt every single year of his collegiate career. A serious knee injury his freshman year, rehabbed his entire sophomore year, played 3 games that year, had a broken collarbone his junior year, hurt his ankle in spring ball of last year, and then had the hamstring stuff that has kept him out throughout this entire draft process in the last few games of Arizona State season. Like, it's just a litany. It's a rap sheet. And so it's, how much do you question the durability? I don't think the talent's a question at all. I don't think the character's a question. He's tough. He's a competitor. He grew up around brothers that were really, really good athletes. So, the competitive toughness is through the roof. The pedigree is unbelievable. It's just like, how do you value the durability part of it? And I think that's going to be the really fascinating spot, because I will say this. I think it's far likelier now he drops to 21 than we ever thought it would be. Back when we were talking about Jordan Tyson in January, everyone was like, this isn't even a possibility. And as time has gone on, I think it has become more of a likelihood that maybe he is there at 21. And if he is there at 21, the Steelers have a decision to make. We'll see.
Let's say the board is realistic at each spot that applies. You're the man in charge. You get to put the final stamp of approval or change the name if you want on that Steelers draft card, Nick. Your ideal first two nights of the selection process look like what?
That's a very interesting question. So, I mean, listen, if we're keeping it realistic, and I'm going to remove Tyson and Ioane because I'm leaning that towards the unrealistic side. I'm a Casey Concepcion guy. So I would take Casey Concepcion. I think he's the best pure route runner in this class. I think he's dynamic after the catch. He's a return man, can play inside or outside. I get a lot of heat for that because people point to the drop rate. I'm really not that concerned about the drop rate. It's not an overwhelming thing when I watch his tape, and the drops are more focus rather than technique. And this kid works tirelessly. I've just heard so much good things about what he does on the field as a leader, what he does in the film room. He's a studious, very detailed person. I love Casey Concepcion, and I think he has the chance to really be a lot better than people think. Like if the gap between Casey Concepcion and Mekhi Lemon is much smaller than people think. That's what I will say about that. So that's the type of guy I would take. I'd probably trade up in the second round. I'd probably try go up and get a guy like Emmanuel Pregnon. That's the type of guy I really like. Nasty, immediate plug and play guy. Not a lot of questions to Pregnon's game. Him or Rutledge, Keelan Rutledge, I would take a guard there in that second round at that point. That's the type of player I'd look at. And then you get to the third round, and I think you kind of have to fill out the future needs, right? You need like, to me, a safety, a corner, you could go receiver again. And when I go into safety in that bucket, I look at a guy like AJ Halsey that could be there. That's really fun. Genesis Smith, those types. Corner, I think if you can get a slot type corner, if a Traden Stukes can fall down to 75, that'd be really good. I'd honestly double up at receiver, probably one of those picks. Dejon Stribling is my guy. I love his game. If you watch the Ole Miss run, he was unbelievable. He's tough as nails. I think he's a starting level receiver. I'd probably pop him in there. And then you're playing with house money from there. So one of those picks would be a secondary focus pick. Another of them would probably be a wide receiver I would take. And then after that, take an inside linebacker. A guy like Keyshawn Elliott, I think makes a lot of sense. A guy like Kyle Lewis could be the pick there. If you want to go defensive tackle, you could go with a guy like Dom Orange. I think, a big nose tackle. Or you can go, offensive tackle at that point. Get a developmental offensive tackle to go with your pair and Broderick Jones and Dylan Cook. So there's a lot of different ways you could do that. But that's kind of how I would do it. So my breakdown would probably be, wide receiver twice, because I just think they need that help at wide receiver, a guard, a secondary player, whether it's a slot, safety, or corner. I preferably like a slot corner because I think that's a pretty big need for them, but a safety slot type that I think could fit in there. And then the fifth pick there, you can kind of fill in BPA at another future position to need.